Yo, what's going on, everybody? Southpaw King Carter here, the super.
Got a haircut. Um, uh, all right. I think today I want to talk about something that isn't super like nuanced, and it's not something that I think is gonna like shock people, but it's just from my own personal experience. Maybe it works for other people, which is fine, but for me, this was like a really good way to figure out where I was going in my life. And it's kind of the simple advice that you just don't rush things. When I was younger, like in high school, I had this kind of idea that I needed to succeed in just a very kind of general sense. I needed to make a lot of money, get good marks, have like a really active social life, etc. And it was like this kind of, without thinking too hard, it was like, this is the thing that society defines as success and defines as like living like a good life. And it basically involves like joining this rat pack or rat race, not like the Frank Sinatra band. That would have been cool. It's like this idea that it's just like you need to be ahead of everybody. You need to, and maybe not just ahead, but also at least right with everybody. You're going to school at the same time, you're getting married at the same time, getting a house at the same time. And I was honestly not doing that good in school at around the time I had this mindset, and I wasn't doing that well socially, and I wasn't really that happy. But you know, it gives you some sense of belonging, like you're like doing something that's like socially, culturally accepted and kind of celebrated and pushed. But when I got older, I, started questioning it. You start to realize the world is a lot more fragile than you used to think it was when you were a kid. A lot of like the things we're taught to do aren't like universal objective truths that are taught to us because they like are the right thing. It's just because they were the right thing in these specific circumstances. And, maybe they're kind of old now. Like, for example, like needing to go to post-secondary education in order to get like a good job. Nowadays, it's almost becoming more advised to go to just like a trade school or something like that if you're looking for an actual job, because we have an insane amount of people that have psychology degrees, history degrees, philosophy degrees, and like I'm an outlier in this sense, but unless you're able to either become a professor, which is like super hard, or you turn it into like a YouTube channel, it's unlikely you're going to have a lot of economic output from that if that's what you're looking for. Some people want to go to university because they just want to learn. That's what I did. I didn't really go in with like a specific job in mind or profession, but I just like the idea of the experience. That's fine too. But for the people that are like, I want to be on this kind of trajectory, and they're following this kind of traditional idea of, my parents went and they got a bachelor's degree and then they were able to get a job and then they could go and buy a house. That's not really the case anymore for at least people in Canada and I think North America. And this is just all to say that, you start recognizing that certain traditional methods of reaching social, cultural success, acceptable success, even personal success, it mends, it shifts, it's transformed throughout generations. And you should always be skeptical when people say, well, this is just the thing you have to do next. It's like a bunch of check boxes. And I started to become more cognizant of that. And I started going like, I don't actually know what I want to do. And do I want to make a lot of money? Do I want to go into a field, like especially where I was from, it was like business and engineering were the two main ones, and they were very like practical, and at the time it guaranteed a job. And I just was kind of thinking like, I don't know, this is like my life. I only have it for a certain amount of time. I should really actually consider what I'm doing. And the weight of that decision doesn't necessarily mean that I need to figure out at that time when I'm like 16, 17, what I want to do. It's just more like, I don't know who I am yet. I need to develop the tools to figure out what I eventually want to do. And so that's why I took a year off, which was a decision that was looked down upon by a lot of people I went to school with at the time. My parents were very accepting of it, but I would honestly recommend anybody at that stage of their life, either going into high school or, maybe university's not working out, or they're going into grad school, that take some time off. Honestly, I did it once before university, and I did it the middle of the pandemic. Was able to work on the YouTube channel. Both times I discovered a lot about myself. I felt like there's moments where you feel not belonging to people of your age, which kind of feels a little bit isolating, but it also helps you develop a greater sense of identity. You're not just conforming to things and deciding to do things because everyone else is doing them. You're going out on your own, and I mean, as long as you're actually like doing stuff. Like I didn't just stay at home and the second time with the pandemic, I definitely stayed at home a lot and played like a lot of video games and just watched Netflix, but I was also working. Like, you do have to make it somewhat productive, and not just in an economic sense, but just in like a personal development sort of way at this age. Like you really, the only component to your life that you should be treating with utmost, I need to rush this part, is figuring out who you are. Like, expose yourself to a ton of different things. Try to say yes to a lot of experiences. Try not to, just follow along with one thing because you think it's safe, even though another thing is more interesting. Really put a lot of energy and time into this aspect of your life, because it will make the rest of your life a lot better. And yeah, this is just my rambling kind of thesis, is just don't rush things. The only way you're going to learn about all this stuff is if you don't rush things. You don't constantly try to force yourself into systems and curriculums just to feel like you belong or you have some purpose or direction. Sometimes it's good to feel a little bit uneasy and you don't know what you're doing, and you kind of have to figure out what you're doing each day. I think that was really exposed when the pandemic happened also, is that all of a sudden a lot of people that were used to daily routines and systems and everything like that, it was just thrown off course. And it's like, oh my God, I have 24 hours in a day. What do? I think a lot more people would create things and hopefully engage more with the people around them and, take a breather. And one of the beautiful things is a lot of richer families used to go on lavish vacations to resorts, and this was before the pandemic, and now air travel's gone down, and it's forced a lot of people to actually travel around their own country. And you kind of realize, I did, there's a lot of nice parks and nice destinations and little landmarks and little towns that you would never even consider visiting, because it's always it's not in Mexico or something like that. When you don't rush things, when you feel like you actually have some time, it's a little unsettling at the start, but it helps you kind of, appreciate your surroundings, appreciate the present. And when you appreciate the present, you have a better base on which you can build a fairly healthy identity full of deep-seated values and interests. And it worked for me, and I don't feel like I'm in a huge rush to do anything. I'm probably going to take another year off after university to figure out if I want to actually go to grad school or not. But hopefully it works for you. And if you're also somebody that's just, they know exactly what they're going to do in their life and they have it all mapped out, I'm surprised you made it this far into the video then. But, all right.